Mazda Motor Corporation is a Japanese automaker based in Fuchū, Aki District, Hiroshima Prefecture, Japan. In 2007, Mazda produced almost 1.3 million vehicles for global sales, the majority of which were produced in the company's Japanese plants, with the remainder coming from a variety of other plants worldwide. In 2011, Mazda was the 15th biggest automaker by production worldwide. Name: the company website states that its name is derived from Ahura Mazda, a god of wisdom, intelligence and harmony of the earliest civilizations in West Asia. Ahura Mazda is the name of God to Zoroastrians. The company website also notes that the name also derives from the name of the company's founder, Jujiro Matsuda. History: Mazda began as the Toyo Kogyo Company, Limited, founded in Hiroshima, Japan in 1920. Toyo Kogyo renamed itself to Toyo Kogyo Company, Limited in 1927. In the late 1920s the company had to be saved from bankruptcy by Hiroshima Saving Bank and other business leaders in Hiroshima. In 1931 Toyo Kogyo moved from manufacturing machine tools to vehicles with the introduction of the Mazda Go auto rickshaw. Toyo Kogyo produced weapons for the Japanese military throughout the Second World War, most notably the Series 30-35 Type 99 rifle. The company formally adopted the Mazda name in 1984, though every automobile sold from the beginning bore that name. The Mazda 360 was introduced in 1960, followed by the Mazda engines in 1962. Beginning in the 1960s, Mazda was inspired by the NSU Ru-80, and decided to put a major engineering effort into development of the Wankel rotary engine as a way of differentiating itself from other Japanese auto companies. The company formed a business relationship with German company NSU, and began with a limited production Cosmos Sport of 1967 and continuing to the present day with the Pro Mazda Championship. Mazda has become the sole manufacturer of Wankel-type engines for the automotive market mainly by way of attrition. This effort to bring attention to itself apparently helped, as Mazda rapidly began to export its vehicles. Both piston-powered and rotary-powered models made their way around the world. The rotary models quickly became popular for their combination of good power and lightweight when compared to piston-engined competitors that required heavier V6 or V8 engines to produce the same power. The A100 and the RX series led the company's export efforts. During 1968, Mazda started formal operations in Canada, although Mazda's was seen in Canada as early as 1959. In 1970, Mazda formally entered the American market and was very successful there, going so far as to create the Mazda rotary pickup solely for North American buyers. To this day, Mazda remains the only automaker to have produced a Wankel-powered pickup truck. Additionally, it is also the only marque to have ever offered a rotary-powered bus or station wagon. After 9 years of development, Mazda finally launched its new model in the US in 1970. Mazda's rotary success continued until the onset of the 1973 oil crisis. As American buyers quickly turned to vehicles with better fuel efficiency, the relatively thirsty rotary-powered models began to fall out of favor. Combined with being the least efficient automaker in Japan, inability to adjust to excess inventory and over-reliance on the U.S. market, the company suffered a huge loss in 1975. An already heavily indebted Toyo Kogyo was on the verge of bankruptcy and was only saved through the intervention of Sumitomo Keiretsu Group, namely Sumitomo Bank, and the company's subcontractors and distributors. Fortunately, the company had not totally turned its back on piston engines, as it continued to produce a variety of four-cylinder models throughout the 1970s. The smaller Familia line in particular became very important to Mazda's worldwide sales after 1973, as did the somewhat larger Capella series. Mazda refocused its efforts and made the rotary engine a choice for the sporting motorist rather than a mainstream power plant. Starting with the lightweight RX-7 in 1978 and continuing with the modern RX-8, Mazda has continued its dedication to this unique power plant. This switch in focus also resulted in the development of another lightweight sports car, the piston-powered Mazda Roadster, inspired by the concept Jinbo Tai. Introduced in 1989 to worldwide acclaim, The Roadster has been widely credited with reviving the concept of the small sports car after its decline in the late 1970s. Partnership with Ford Motor Company. From 1979 to 2010, Mazda had a partnership with the Ford Motor Company, who acquired a 7% stake in 1979 and by 1996, owned 33.3% of Mazda. Under the administration of Alan Mulally, Ford gradually divested its stake in Mazda from 2008 to 2010, with Ford currently holding 0% of Mazda stock and severing production as well as development ties. This partnership with Ford Motor Company began due to Mazda's financial difficulties during the 1960s. Starting in 1979 with a 7% financial stake, Ford began a partnership with Mazda resulting in various joint projects. During the 1980s, Ford gained another 20% financial stake. These included large and small efforts in all areas of the automotive landscape, most notably in the realm of pickup trucks and smaller cars. For instance, Mazda's Familia platform was used for Ford models like the Laser and Escort, while the Capella architecture found its way into Ford's Telstar sedan and Probe sports models. In 2002 Ford gained an extra 5% financial stake. The Probe was built in a new Mazda assembly plant in Flat Rock, Michigan, along with the mainstream 626 sedan and a companion Mazda MX-6 sports coupe. Ford also lent Mazda some of his capacity when needed. The Mazda 121 sold in Europe and South Africa was, for a time, a variant of the Ford Fiesta built in plants in Europe and South Africa. Mazda also made an effort in the past to sell some of Ford's cars in Japan, mainly through its Autorama dealer group. Mazda also helped Ford develop the 1991 Explorer, which Mazda sold as the two-door only Mazda Navajo from 1991 through 1994. Ironically, Mazda's version was unsuccessful, while the Ford instantly became the best-selling sport utility vehicle in the United States and kept that title for over a decade. Mazda has used Ford's Ranger pickup as the basis for its North Americana Euromarket B-Series trucks, starting in 1994 and continuing through 2010, when Mazda discontinued importing its B-Series trucks to North America, due to costs associated with the chicken tax. Following its long-held fascination with alternative engine technology, Mazda introduced the first Miller cycle engine for automotive use in the Millenia luxury sedan of 1995. Though the Millenia were discontinued in 2002, the company has recently introduced a much smaller Miller cycle four-cylinder engine for use in its Demio starting in 2008. As with its leadership in Wankel technology, Mazda remains the only automaker to have used a Miller cycle engine in the automotive realm. Further financial difficulties at Mazda during the 1990s caused Ford to increase its stake to a 33.4% controlling interest in May 1996. In June 1996, Henry Wallace was appointed president, and he set about restructuring Mazda and setting it on a new strategic direction. He laid out a new direction for the brand, including the design of the present Mazda marque. He laid out a new product plan to achieve synergies with Ford, and he launched Mazda's digital innovation program to speed up the development of new products. At the same time, he started taking control of overseas distributors, rationalized dealerships and manufacturing facilities, and driving much-needed efficiencies and cost reductions in Mazda's operations. Much of his early work put Mazda back into profitability and laid the foundations for future success. Wallace was succeeded by James Miller in November 1997, followed in December 1999 by Ford executive Mark Fields, who has been credited with expanding Mazda's new product lineup and leading the turnaround during the early 2000s. Ford's increased influence during the 1990s allowed Mazda to claim another distinction in history, having maintained the first foreign-born head of a Japanese car company, Henry Wallace. Amidst the world financial crisis in the fall of 2008, reports emerged that Ford was contemplating a sale of its stake in Mazda as a way of streamlining its asset base. Businessweek explained the alliance between Ford and Mazda has been a very successful one, with Mazda saving perhaps $90 a million a year in development costs and Ford several times that, and that a sale of its stake in Mazda would be a desperate measure. On November 18, 2008, Ford announced that it would sell a 20% stake in Mazda, reducing its stake to 13.4%, thus surrendering control of the company, which it held since 1996. The following day, Mazda announced that, as part of the deal, it was buying back 6.8% of its shares from Ford for about $185 million, while the rest would be acquired by business partners of the company. It was also reported that Hisakazu Imaki would be stepping down as chief executive, to be replaced by Takashi Yamauchi. On November 18, 2010, Ford reduced its stake further to 3%, citing the reduction of ownership would allow greater flexibility to pursue growth in emerging markets, and Sumitomo Mitsui Financial Group was believed to become its largest shareholder. Ford and Mazda remain strategic partners through joint ventures and exchanges of technological information. Post-partnership with Ford, Mazda Motor Corporation raised more than 150 billion yen in a record share sale to replenish capital as it suffered its biggest annual loss in 11 years. Part of the proceeds used to build an auto plant in Mexico. The Mexican plant is built jointly by the company and Sumitomo Corporation. Marks. Mazda previously used a number of different marks in the Japanese market, including AutoZam, Ianos, and a 1/4 FNI, which have since been phased out. The motivation was brought on by market competition from other Japanese automakers' efforts in offering vehicles at multiple Japanese dealership networks offered by Toyota, Nissan, and Honda. Mazda's implementation of brand diversification reflected a Japanese engineering philosophy, called Kanzu engineering, which was used as an advertising slogan in North America. This selective marketing experiment was ended in the mid-1990s due to economic conditions, largely attributed to the collapse of the Japanese asset price bubble in 1991. This diversification stressed the product development groups at Mazda past its limits. Instead of having a half-dozen variations on any given platform, developers were asked to work on dozens of different models, and consumers were confused as well by the explosion of similar new models. One of the oddest sub-marks was M2, used on 3 rare variants of the Ianos Roadster and one of the AutoZam AZ1. M2 even had its own avant-garde company headquarters, but was shut down after a very short period of operation. Today, the former marks no longer exist in Japan as sales channels. The Carol was sold at the AutoZam store, but it now sold with a Mazda mark, not as the AutoZam Carol as it once was. In early 1992 Mazda planned to release a luxury mark, Amati, to challenge Acura, Infiniti, and Lexus in North America, which was to begin selling in late 1993. The initial Amati range would have included the Amati 500, a luxury sports coupe based on the Mazda Cosmo, and the Amati 1000. The Amati mark was eventually scrapped before any cars hit the market. It is perhaps just a curiosity, but Amati happens to be an anagram of Miata. In Europe, the Xedo's name was also associated with the Mazda Xedo 6. The two models were in production from 1992 until 1997. The Xedo's line was marketed under the Mazda mark, and used the Mazda badge from the corresponding years. Emblems, leadership, Jujiro Matsuda, Tsunji Matsuda, Kouhyu Matsuda, Yoshiki Yamasaki, Knishi Yamamoto, Masanori Furuta, Yoshiro Wada, Henry Wallace, James E. Miller, Mark Fields, Louis Booth, Hisakazu Imaki, Takashi Yamauchi, Masamiki Kogai. Environmental efforts. Mazda has conducted research in hydrogen-powered vehicles for several decades. Mazda has developed a hybrid version of its Premacy compact minivan using a version of his signature rotary engine that can run on hydrogen or gasoline. Despite plans to release it in 2008, as of 2010 the vehicle is in limited trials. In 2010 Toyota and Mazda announced a supply agreement for the hybrid technology used in Toyota's Prius model. Biocar, Mazda is finding a host of other uses from plastic to milk in its vehicles as it aims to be more environmentally friendly. Mazda introduced its innovations bioplastic internal consoles and biofabric seats in its Mazda 5 model at ECO Innovasia 2008, at the Queen Sirikit National Convention Center in Bangkok. Up to 30% of the interior parts in the Mazda 5 made of non-biomaterial components, for example POTI. Skyactiv Technology. Skyactiv Technology is an umbrella name for a range of technologies used in certain new Mazda vehicles. These vehicles include the Mazda 2/Demio, Mazda 6/Atenza, CX-5 and 2014 Mazda 3. Together these technologies increase fuel economy to a level similar to a hybrid drivetrain. Engine outputs is increased and emission levels are reduced. These technologies include high compression ratio gasoline engines, reduced compression diesel engines with new two-stage turbocharger design, highly efficient automatic transmissions, lighter weight manual transmissions, lightweight body designs and electric power steering. It is also possible to combine these technologies with a hybrid drivetrain for even greater fuel economy. Motorsport. In the racing world, Mazda has had substantial success with both its signature Wankel engine cars as well as its piston engine models. Mazda vehicles and engines compete in a wide variety of disciplines and series around the world. More Mazdas are raced every week than any other car brand. As of 2014, Mazda remains the only Japanese automaker to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans overall. International competition. Mazda's competition debut was on October 20, 1968 when two Mazda Cosmos Sport 110 seconds coupes entered the 84-hour Marathon de la Route Ultra Endurance race at the Nürburgring, one finishing in fourth place and the other breaking an axle after 81 hours. The next year, Mazda raced Mazda Familia R100M10A coupes. After winning the Singapore Grand Prix in April 1969 and coming in 5th and 6th in the Spa 24 Hours, on October 19, 1969, Mazda again entered the 84-hour Nürburgring race with four Familias. Only one of these finished, taking 5th place. The first racing victory by a Wankel-engined car in the United States was in 1973, when Pat Bedard won an IMSA-RS race at Lime Rock Park in a Mazda RX-2. In 1976, Ray Wall, owner of Z&W Mazda, drove a Cosmo from the dealership in Princeton, New Jersey, to Daytona, won the touring class under 2.5 liters at the 24 Hours of Daytona, and drove the car back to New Jersey. The Cosmo placed 18th overall in a field of 72. The only modifications were racing brake pads, exhaust, and safety equipment. After substantial successes by the Mazda RX-2 and Mazda RX-3, the Mazda RX-7 has won more IMSA races in its class than any other model of automobile, with its 100th victory on September 2, 1990. Following that, the RX-7 won its class in the IMSA 24 Hours of Daytona race 10 years in a row, starting in 1982. The RX-7 won the IMSA Grand Touring Under 2-liter Championship each year from 1980 through 1987, inclusive. In 1991, a four-rotor Mazda 787 billion won the 24 Hours of Le Mans Auto Race outright. The 787B's triumph remains unparalleled, as it remains the only non-piston-engined car ever to win at Le Mans, and Mazda is still the only Japanese marque to have won overall at Le Mans ironically after Nissan had closed down its World Sports Car Championship program and Toyota had opted to take a sabbatical for most of 1991 in order to develop its 3.5-liter TS010. This led to a ban on rotary engines in the Le Mans race starting in 1992, which has since been rescinded. After the 1991 race, the winning engine was publicly dismantled for internal examination, which demonstrated that despite 24 hours of extremely hard use it had accumulated very little wear. The Le Mans win in 1991 followed a decade of class wins from other Mazda prototypes, including the 757 and 767. The Sigma MC74 powered by a Mazda 12A engine was the first engine and team from outside Western Europe or the United States to finish the entire 24 hours of the Le Mans race, in 1974. Mazda is also the most reliable finisher at Le Mans, with 67% of entries finishing. Mazda will return to prototype racing in 2005 with the introduction of the Courage C65 LMP2 car at the American Le Mans Series race at Road Atlanta. This prototype racer uses the Renesas Wankel from the RX-8. Mazdas have also enjoyed substantial success in World Land Speed Competition, SCCA competition, drag racing, pro rally competition, the One Lap of America race, and other venues. Wankel engines have been banned for some time from international Formula One racing, as well as from United States midget racing, after Gene Angelillo won the Northeast Midget Racing Association Championship in 1985 with a car powered by a 13B engine, and again in 1986 in a car powered by a 12A engine. Spec Series, the Cooper Tires Atlantic Championship powered by Mazda is a North American open-wheel racing series. It is the top level of the Mazda Speed Ladder, a driver development program which rewards season winners of one level with automatic rides at the next level. Since 2006, the Atlantic Championship has been run exclusively with Swift 016, a chassis powered by Mazda Cosworth MZR 2300cc's DOHC inline-4 engines producing 300 bhp. The cars are capable of speeds in excess of 175 mph. Formula Mazda Racing features open-wheel race cars with Mazda engines, adaptable to both oval tracks and road courses, on several levels of competition. Since 1991, the professionally organized Star Mazda series has been the most popular format for sponsors, spectators, and upward-bound drivers. It is the second highest level on the aforementioned Mazda Speed Driver Development Ladder. Engines for the Star Mazda series are all built by one engine builder, certified to produce the prescribed power, and sealed to discourage tampering. They are in a relatively mild state of racing tune, so that they are extremely reliable and can go years between motor rebuilds. Spec Miata has become one of the most popular and most affordable road racing classes in North America. The Spec Miata class is intended to provide the opportunity to compete in low-cost, production-based cars with limited modifications, suitable for racing competition. The rules are intentionally designed to be more open than the showroom stock class but more restricted than the improved touring class. Spec RX-7 is also a popular club racing class primarily due to the availability of first-generation RX-7 cars and the low startup cost. Spec RX-7 in some regions is noted as one of the most cost-effective sports car classes. Sponsorships. Mazda is a major sponsor to several professional sports teams, including hometown teams, Sanfrecce Hiroshima, originally known as Toyo Kogyo Soccer Club and founded in 1938, it was owned directly by Mazda until 1992 when Mazda reduced its share to professionalize the club for the new J-League. Hiroshima Toyo Corp, the Toyo part of the team's name is in honor of Mazda's part ownership of the team since 1968. The Matsuda family, descended from the founder of Mazda, holds the majority share in team ownership. Teams abroad, North Melbourne Football Club, ACF Fiorentina, Nakarachi. The company also sponsors various marathon and relay race events in Japan, such as the Hiroshima International Peace Marathon and the Hiroshima Prefectural Ikaidan Race, along with numerous other sporting and charity endeavors in Hiroshima and Fuchū. Mazda was also the league sponsor for the now-defunct Australian Rugby Championship. Mazda also maintains sponsorship of the Laguna Seca racing course in California, going so far as to use it for its own automotive testing purposes as well as the numerous racing events that it hosts, as well as for the 2003 launch of the Mazda RX-8. Mazda also sponsors the Western New York Flash, a professional women's soccer team that plays in the WPA and has some of the best players in the world, including World Player of the Year. Marketing. Mazda's past advertising slogans included, "The more you look, the more you like." Experience Mazda. An intense commitment to your total satisfaction, that's the Mazda way. It just feels right along with advertising describing Mazda's use of Kanzu engineering. Passion for the road. Get and be moved. Since 2000, Mazda has used the phrase zoom zoom to describe what it calls the emotion of motion that it claims is inherent in its cars. Extremely successful and long-lasting, the Zoom Zoom campaign has now spread around the world from its initial use in North America. The Zoom Zoom campaign has been accompanied by the Zoom 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 song in many television and radio advertisements. The original version, performed by Gibril Serapis Bey, was recorded long before it became the official song for Mazda as part of a soundtrack to the movie Only the Strong. The Serapis Bey version is a cover of a traditional capoeira song, called Capoeira Mata In 2010, its current slogan is Zoom Zoom Forever. The longer slogan is Zoom Zoom, Today, Tomorrow, Forever. Early ads in the Zoom Zoom campaign also featured a young boy whispering the Zoom Zoom tagline. Since 2011, Mazda has still used the Zoom Zoom tagline in another campaign called, What Do You Drive? The punchline for this is at Mazda, we believe because if it's not worth driving, it's not worth building. We build Mazdas. What do you drive? See also: List of Mazda vehicles, List of Mazda platforms, List of Mazda engines, List of Mazda facilities, References. External links: Mazda global website includes links to Mazda operations worldwide.